What's up, everybody? Paul, Hickey, and Kendall McKee here. And my microphone fell over. Paul, Hickey, and Kendall McKee here with nooffseason.com. Welcome to Sports Card Strategy Show, episode 61. It's just Kendall and I, no guests today, so get pumped for that, everybody. Kendall, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's one of those mornings where like it's a little cloudy outside, so the sun is like not quite, raising up. So I have to use my desk lamp, or otherwise you won't be able to see me.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's super early. Kendall and I both have a lot of other stuff going on, so we're waking up early. We're doing the Sports Card Strategy Show. It's our main priority in life, obviously, for all of you in the audience. And I'm in a similar boat. I've got like another computer behind me that's like my lighting in the background because the sun's just kind of coming out here in Tennessee. So yeah, but Kendall, like that actually makes me think. I've got a question for you. And this is the second to last time you'll hear this question. So why vault your cards with the original marketplace? Because the eBay vault isn't just a way to protect what you collect. It's a new way to trade. Not only have your cards never been safer thanks to our secure climate controlled facility, but you're also locking in real savings. You pay no sales tax when you ship to or transact within the vault, and there are no storage fees for 2 years. Now just imagine everything you can do with all that money. And with eBay Vault's seamless in-app experience, you can track, buy, and sell your cards in real time. From listing your cards in seconds with eBay Collection to tracking trends with eBay Price Guide, managing your collection is more seamless than ever before. The eBay Vault. Buy, sell, secure. So that's probably the second to last time you'll hear that because the eBay promotion is running out at the end of December. That was always the plan. So we'll see if they actually pay us anything for that. I'm hoping that they do, but I invoiced their media company at the end of October for the first month's promotion, and I still haven't heard back. And today's December 19th. So I think it just might be one of those big corporation accounting things.
But yeah. So at Just Baseball, we also get late invoices from them as well. So don't feel bad.
Yeah, I think it's like, I've been down this road before and earlier parts of my career where like when you're like the larger the company, the longer it takes for them to pay you versus the smaller the company, like smaller businesses tend to pay right away, which I'm a big fan of. But yeah, like,
I think we all are.
Yeah, like exactly. So the eBay media company, the media company that represents eBay, they're all very nice people, but they have emailed me like 14 times requesting the same information from me. And I reply right away every time. And they like act like they've never seen it before. And they're like, are the promotions still even running? Like, did you even run the ads? And I'm like, I think so. I've been talking about it every show. So yeah, I've been running the ads. Would love it if you actually pay me for the ads. But speaking of that, we've got there's this guy who runs a website called Bob's Card Market, bobscardmarket.com. It's basically all done through Discord, but they do a real, there's a lot of this going on in the hobby, and he runs a business, and he's actually located in Tennessee. He's kind of halfway between you and I. Well, I mean, he's closer to me for sure, but he lives between you and I, Kendall. And he seems like a really good guy. I talked to him about his business and what they do at Bob's Card Market. And he's a sponsor of the show. So thank you to Bob's Card Market. We're going to be talking about Bob's Card Market starting in January, but it's almost January. So I wanted to give them a shout out. Check out bobscardmarket.com, everybody, to see what they're all about. Join their Discord. They've got like, razzes, breaks, games, all sorts of card talk. So I haven't been in it as much because of the move and everything, but excited to check them out. And, we'll see if we can combine communities,
Go on, Bob.
Yeah, do your thing, Bob. And then, of course, we've got at nooffseason.com, you can go premium free for a year. Just email me at paul@nooffseason.com to find out how. All right, let's jump into the show here, Kendall. So you've got a lot going on at Just Baseball, at Wild Cards Box Breaks, and of course, the Sports Card Strategy Show. So I am excited to talk to you today with no guest. And let's jump into your, you can. Do you want to jump into your L of the week, or do you want to just chat for a minute before we go into L of the week?
Can we start with W of the week?
I would love to start with W of the week. Let's do it. You go ahead and kick us off with your W of the week.
I mean, I think this is my W of the week, but I think it's something that we're probably just going to chat about. How can you not mention the World Cup final after a day like yesterday? Just a surreal moment with Messi getting his trophy, cementing himself probably as the best of all time, the best to ever lace him up. So cool to watch him get his trophy, and then Mbappe also get a hat trick. Like I was kind of nervous about how this would affect everything with which one of them would take a massive hit after this game. And the way it played out, I really don't think either one of them is going to take a massive hit. And in fact, I think both of them probably took a massive rise. And so for your card market, best case scenario, I would say if you're into 6 to 12 month flipping, this is literally not a better time. There's not a better time to sell either one of those players or any player on Argentina, or honestly, like any player that did well at the World Cup. This is it's kind of your last chance to get out of it. But I think that World Cup final, man, might have been the best soccer game I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I told my wife and kids that I thought that was probably the best soccer match that any of us would ever watch. And so that if they didn't enjoy that match, then they probably wouldn't ever like soccer. So
yeah,
I think like it could not have been scripted any better than what happened. Now, obviously, if you're from France, or if you were rooting for Mbappe in France for whatever reason, it could have been scripted a little better for you. But overall, as just a neutral fan, it really, and for the game and for the card market, like you said, it could not have gone better. I mean, for Mbappe to score a hat trick, just what an absolute stud. And to be, I texted you, can France come back when Argentina was up 2-0 in the first 30 minutes of the game or whatever it was? And I mean, you and Max were both saying the same thing. You were both like, it's over.
Yeah.
And I understand where you guys are coming from, because you guys understand soccer better than I do. You've each watched, you especially have watched way more soccer than I ever have. So you have a feel for what that means to be down 2-0 that early on in a game of that significance, and how hard it would be to come back. So I agree. It was a great game. Could not have been a better result for both of their card markets. And I actually had the same thing in my notes. I have, if you go to nooffseason.com and click on either Messi or Mbappe now on the soccer card rankings, you will see that I wrote essentially what Kendall just said, which is if you have been holding these guys and looking to sell them at a point in time, you're almost going to miss out if you don't do it right now. You may have already missed out. Probably not. Like, because I do think with a World Cup sort of hype hangover could last longer than like an NBA playoff game or like a World Series. Potentially, we'll see. We don't have as many sample size of that data because it only happens once every 4 years. And the card market back in 2018 was definitely different than what it is in 2022. But it's interesting to see, these guys perform at that level when really both of them had not had a great year coming into the World Cup. So I think because of those two factors, like both of their card markets had really kind of dipped, especially like with Messi going to PSG, with Mbappe really not doing as well in the Euros, and then kind of being like not average, but just not at his superstar dominant level all season for the club team. And then for him to come out, and for both of them to come out and dominate the way they did in the World Cup, now is the time to sell. Now, the other side of that coin is they are now both solidified in my mind as amazing long-term holds, right?
Yeah.
So if you are not, you just said this, you said, if you are in the 12-month flipping game, like you and I are, now is the time to sell. If you are dabbling in that game, but you also look for long-term card investments to hold for whatever reason. We talk about that a lot on the show, that I'm really not that person, but a lot of people are. Now, both of these guys in my mind also fit in that category. So if you want to buy these guys as a long-term investment, I wouldn't necessarily do it now, but if you did it in January, probably not a bad idea. That's probably something we'll talk about when we get to January. But what do you think about that? What do you think about these guys as a long-term? If people wanted to buy into them, I guess when would you do that? And would you agree that obviously Messi, but you know, if he wouldn't have won the World Cup, I don't know that I would be as confident saying like hold Messi long term. And now, Mbappe was off to a great start, but was he going to peter out like Neymar, or was he going to take the next step? And to me, it looks like he's now taking the next step, even though they lost. What do you? Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, I think that's why I gave the disclosure if you are a 6 to 12 month person, then sell, but like I was kind of like laying it up to say like it's not as a surefire of like a holy cow, get this off your hands, like a Baker Mayfield winning, the Thursday Night Football the other week. Like that was like you got to sell because you never know if you're gonna get another chance. Like this, I really do think that Messi's cards will go down as like some of the most valuable cards in sports cards, because he came out and like his cards are in the perfect era where sports cards were not super overpopulated when he started, playing. So he's got a super short run. Like Mbappe's got cards all over the place, and now Messi does have cards, but like not as high or desirable ones. Like even Messi autos are kind of rare, and so like you just don't see him that much. And so I'm sure that they will both be long-term holds. I would rather have a Messi in a long-term hold, especially if it's a PSA 10 or something like that. I mean, I think that could be like, that could beat inflation for the next forever, I think. So, and he's not done either, which I think is a little bit of a caveat to this, because he could come out and, injure himself or have like a lackluster end of his career. But there's talk about him coming to the States to play, and that could vault his card value as well. Like, there's still milestones that I think that he will hit, but just this is the biggest one, so it's not, he's the GOAT.
So this is actually a great segue into a question that we had from Scott, who's a loyal audience member and paid member of nooffseason.com. So I wanted to get this into the show. So thanks, Scott. And he and I went back and forth on an email. But I just wanted to get your take on this too, Kendall. And I think it's valuable for the audience, super relevant right now. So basically Scott has like multiple Messi cards. He's basically he has like multiple versions of the 2004 mega cracks. And I don't, he didn't give me all the details. Like he didn't say like if they were raw or what. My assumption is that he has a few of them, maybe some of them in different grades and whatnot. And so his question generally was, this was before the World Cup. So he emailed me last week and he said, not before the World Cup, before the final. And he said, what do you think would be the best time to sell Messi? If Argentina wins the World Cup, will this be his peak, or would you expect his cards to increase when he retires? I've got some 04 Messi mega cracks and want to make the right move. Now, I replied, I think it's an amazing question. I said, I really think the answer is when Argentina wins the World Cup, far over when he retires. But I also kind of added, using other sports as a model, there's always been something to be said for listing leading up to the big game instead of waiting until they win the big game. And then I said I'd throw in a third possibility, which is to have one of them listed in a buy it now or best offer leading up to the big game, right? And then have one or more of them listed with an auction time to end right after the final, and then hold one to see what the prices do after the World Cup. And I basically added, because Scott was specifically looking to sell, I said I would not wait until he retires. And so that's kind of what you just said. But do you have anything to add to that as we're talking about just kind of what to do with Messi's cards or what to do about Messi's cards now that he has his first World Cup title.
Yeah, it seems like some of the discussions that we had earlier this year around like Pujols and stuff like that about like, when do we wait? Do we wait for these guys to retire? Do we wait for their Hall of Fame ceremonies? Peyton Manning, for instance, didn't really have a jump when he hit the Hall of Fame. And so like there are some of these markers that are kind of false markers, kind of in our head, rather than like card market markers. And it's not going to get any bigger than him winning this World Cup. I guess potentially it could be big again if he makes the next World Cup roster, which the coach did say the number 10 was going to be there for him at the World Cup next year or the next cycle. If he actually won it, they're like, we're never going to tell Messi he's not going to be able to play. But it's just a long way away for a player at his age. But I mean, I guess it could happen as well. And so if he is looking to sell and looking to make profit, I would already have been out of it probably, because I think you're right about posting it before the game or even during the game. Like now as frustrating as it is, people are already losing interest and moving on to the next thing. And so the only thing that I would say with this is, did you see the scenes in Argentina? Like, have you seen any of the videos of the streets just completely full?
No, I haven't.
It's literally like, it looks like everybody on the whole planet is in the street. Like it goes on for miles and miles and miles and miles. And there's like drones that are flying over, just loads of people. And like, it would have been one thing for, if America wins the World Cup, people are going to be happy. There might be a parade. People, Alexi Lawless is going to have a viral TikTok, but like, we're not going to fill the streets of DC for like days.
Right.
Like, it's just different.
I don't think anyone's going to be crying with joy.
No.
No, I mean, I don't know that one. I mean, maybe you and a few of your.
Maybe like really passionate fans, but not like the average Argentinian is crying,
exactly.
Like I live with I'm here in Kentucky, but there's a girl that that goes to my church, and she's grew up in Argentina, and like she was crying. She's not even a sports person.
Right.
Like she barely even knew who Messi was. But like it's just such a big cultural thing. Like I think that's the only thing that potentially could play into a holdover for Messi's cards, because like, dude, they're still in the street partying. Like if you're selling it to any Argentinians or whatever, they're not even to eBay yet. They're not to reliving it. They're still living it. And so I don't know. I think there could be a small window opening after this for the next week or two. But yeah, in terms of crystallizing that profit, what are those cards going for raw?
You know what? Unfortunately, I haven't even checked, so I apologize to the audience, and I don't have that answer. I might look it up during another segment of the show and bring it back. But I was going to say,
gosh, I would love to have one of those.
I know. But the important thing to remember here, I guess, is a couple things, because you hit on one thing you just said really resonated with me. And that is like when you said even during the game, right? And I think that is something that all sports card investors and flippers need to remember, is that during the game is the point of peak interest for people wanting to buy your card. And case in point, my buddy Nate, who actually was on, if for those of you who are like big time sports card strategy show listeners, Nate was actually my co-host before Kendall for like the first 9 or 10 episodes. And so he is, I would say, dabbles in cards, which a lot of them are. So we obviously have like people like us and the audience who are like big into cards. And then there's probably like people like fringe audience members who maybe stumble upon our show and are interested. Right. And I would put Nate in that category. And I would say there's probably far more Americans and people across the globe that are in that that are like top of the funnel type people, right? Like people who are not buying and selling and flipping cards on a daily basis, but they're interested and they may look and they may attend a card show with their kid or something like that. And they might think about buying cards. So Nate's in that category, right? And so he's texting me during the game and he's saying like, what Mbappe cards do you have? Like, how many Mbappe cards do you have? So So I think that that is just one person, but that is a perfect example of what you're talking about. So that audience demographic who may buy your card is interested during the big game. And then after the game, I don't think Nate or people like him care. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the card market, to your point, kind of turns to another direction as well. So, but with Messi winning it, that is a different market. And so now you're talking about if you own that card, great. You have an option to keep it as a long-term investment now, or you can sell it right now and crystallize the profit. If you don't own those cards, you definitely want to make sure that you buy in at a point where it makes sense financially for that card to potentially go up again. So maybe I can ask, so based on the recent sales data of like the bigger Messi cards, the 2004 Mega Cracks cards, the last sales dates we have of those at nooffseason.com are actually at the end of November. So not that they haven't sold since then, but like a PSA 10 of the 2004 Mega Cracks Barca Campeón 62 was $6,000 on November 11th. So I'd have to look up if there's a more recent sale of that card now. PSA 8 on November 20th was $849. But when I said I don't have the data, I don't have the data of like if anything sold in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I think, man, there's like there's a 2004 Panini Mega Cracks Auto BGS 8 for $500. That or 8.5. That really feels like you could crack it and send it to PSA for a 9 and make a ton of money.
Yeah, I like that play a lot. Okay, so December 18th, which was yesterday, that card that I mentioned a second ago, 04 Mega Cracks Barca Campeón number 62, sold in PSA 8, 34 bids on eBay, $820. So actually, that's lower. That's $29 lower, less than it sold for on November 20th. So that's interesting. I mean, it says December 18th. So I don't know if that's before or after the game ended, but that's right at that peak time we're talking about.
Yeah.
Another PSA 8 sold yesterday for $750. So that's less, you know what I mean? Which is interesting. December 6th, the PSA 10 sold for $6,200. So that's $200 more than the sale about a month prior. Which is interesting. This is a perfect segue into my L of the week. And then we'll come back around and do the W to get us
because you didn't mention
in line.
W.
So at the London Card Show, at the end of October, I bought a bunch of cards, but I bought 2 Zach Wilson PSA 10s. So Zach Wilson, gold press proof, PSA 10. It says 60 pounds on it, but I think I bought this so 60 pounds is like $70. I think I probably bought this for like $50. And then this blue Donruss PSA 10 press proof as well. This says 45 pounds on it. 55. It was probably $40. 40, I definitely bought it for like 10% less than the sticker price. So the sales of these cards, like now my L of the week is probably this, the gold one. Because it's obviously we all know what's happened with Zach Wilson. It's, he lost his job to Mike White. Mike White was then injured. This past weekend, Zach Wilson started against the Lions. His stat line looked good. I didn't see the game, but the Jets lost. So now it's like, Zach Wilson just maybe heading into next year when if Zach Wilson looks like he has the job and there's some hype around him going into next season, that might be a better time to sell Zach Wilson's cards than right now. Although, him being a starting quarterback and putting up 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns is not a bad time to sell him either. But this card sold for $40. Buy it now yesterday. So that's a loss, right? Because I said I bought it for probably around 50 or 60 US dollars. So that's a loss. But the blue one looks like it's actually held its value. So the blue one sold 5 days ago for $60 on eBay. But then what I wanted to bring up though is, and this appears to be the same across sports, across athletes, whether they're prospects or more established active goats or whatever, or of course retired legends. And this is not a shocking statement, but I just want to bring it up again. If you look at the PSA 10, like the PSA 10 appears to be not only holding its value for a guy like Zach Wilson, but a little bit of profit in here for me. But if you go down to the PSA 9, like you've got $14.50. And that was November 1st. But and then same thing with the gold. So like PSA 9 of the gold is going to go for much less than the PSA 10. But I just said that about Messi. So like the Messi PSA 10 of his 04, you would have profited off of that a little bit, not even really that much. But then his PSA 8 went down. So L of the week, Zach Wilson. Like I thought, the play here is my L of the week because like I thought that by now, when I got to my home in Tennessee and was able to sell these from the US, that they probably would have gone up in value. I made the wrong call. Like I said, he lost his starting job. Now I'm looking at either breaking even for these, or maybe I'll wait till heading to the hype season heading into the next NFL season. But I also just wanted to bring up the point that along with the Messi card, it just looks like if you go a little bit higher and go PSA 10 of these cards, it's almost like you're really mitigating your risk big time versus going with a lower grade. So it depends on like what type of collector investor you are. I could see like not all of us have $6,000 to spend on a Messi PSA 10, but if you want to make money, that's probably what you need to do versus going $500 or $600 for the PSA 8. Kendall, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I think it's not completely fair to put them in the same ballpark. A Messi auto PSA 8 or 9 or something like that can be like, okay, well, still there's not that many of them. We got to get them. Like a rated rookie, Zach Wilson, difference between a 10 and a 9 is quite significant, especially with the pop count of the, like of these cards and like what's available out there for Zach Wilson and stuff like that. Like, I think we've got to differentiate to our audience. Like this is two separate things. Yeah. And I think, but I've been kind of teetering with this for a while. I used to buy 9s and trying to like flip them and stuff, like because with hype cycles, it's a little more obtainable, and especially if you're like on a small bankroll. And then like I talked to some guys that are fans of our show a lot about how they're buying 9s and they're flipping them. And I just have got completely out of that game because 9s are there. It's so easy for somebody to be like, well, I mean, there's stuff wrong with it, and it's just like, you don't want to, I mean, we've talked about this before, but you don't want to give people a reason to bring up a discount. Like you don't want to give them like, well, I would pay full price for this, but
yeah, totally.
That's something I talked to Chase Krim about a lot. From Texas Roadshow is like, he was talking to me the other day about, I did a dual service Bowman grade in PSA, and it was a PSA 10, but the auto grade was authentic. Because I was like, I don't want to potentially get an auto grade less than a 10, and I just want people to know it's authentic, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, from where I'm at these Dallas trade shows and stuff, or Dallas card shows, he's like, that's a reason for somebody to not pay me full price, is because they're like, oh, well, why did you just authenticate it rather than grade it? And even though my intention was that we wouldn't have that conversation, it's created that conversation.
Yeah.
So, now I'll be honest, like I don't ever really think about that kind of stuff when I'm buying cards, but maybe that's because I don't buy cards well enough. Like I'm not like, this isn't a, whatever, I'm not. Anyway, I
I,
just
I like the grading conversation. I'm going to keep it going because it actually is everything you just said is relevant to my W of the week. And it's just something I'm excited about. So I'll keep that going. But hey, Ziggy No Collectibles, happy holidays and good morning to you as well. Thanks for jumping into the show. Let us know if you have any questions, everybody.
morning, Ziggy.
So my W of the week actually goes in exactly with what we're just talking about. So I made a PSA submission. I made 2 PSA submissions, and the reason why it's my W of the week is because I did it this past week, and I needed to wait to do it for a couple different reasons. One is because I had cards that were on me that were in Europe that I needed to bring back to the United States. So, and then one of them I bought in Atlanta, which I talked about on last week's show. So, 4 Gavi rookies from 2021 Topps Chrome, Pedri auto that I picked up at the London Card Show. And then I did crack. Sorry to Frankie Goodman from Digital Grading UK. I did crack all of the slabs that I talked about on the show when we had Frankie on. I took them out to my garage with a hammer and beat the crap out of the top label portion of the slab, and then successfully flipped it open with a screwdriver. Did not damage the card, but I'm submitting the Pedri that was 100, the Cade Cunningham Red Pulsar that was a 94. And then, so basically, and then I did have another one. I had a HGA slab, a CD Lamb Panini Donruss Optic Hollow that I picked up at the London Card Show for like $10 or something, but it was HGA non 9.5 with their top subgrades or whatever. So I said, and I looked up the price and I said, this in a PSA 10 is a pretty decent profit margin at the $15 per card submission level. And in a PSA 9, it's basically breaking even. So that, I believe that this submission at the $15 per card level is a win of the week for me. And a couple different things that I'll just tie together here. So one is the auto grade. So I did this with the Jordan Poole that you're familiar with, and the audience who's been listening for a while.
Off last night, by the way.
Familiar with Jordan Poole is looking good for the Warriors. But I do feel like I still made the right move when I bought his Contenders rookie ticket auto from Chase Crim at the National for about $330 or $350 raw, submitted it as part of a bulk submission to PSA. Now, because it was in a bulk submission, I could not grade the auto. But I was happy that I couldn't grade the auto because I didn't want any kind of acknowledgement around the auto grade to the point that you just made. So I didn't want it authenticated.
You just wanted to know it was real.
I just wanted to know. Well, since it's Panini, it's a Panini verified auto anyway. Yeah. I just wanted the card grade. And so that's another option. So that's what I did with this Christian Encarnacion strand. I just bulked it together in a $15 per card submission that doesn't allow you to get the auto grade because they all have to be just a card grade at that level. And so now to me, like somebody can go, oh, well, why didn't you get the auto graded? And we can play that game and they might not want to buy the card. But in my mind, I just got the card graded because the autograph is already authenticated by Bowman by Topps, right? So to me, that's the way to go because I don't want to risk getting like a 7, 8, or a 9 on an auto at PSA. And I don't really want it to say authentic either. I just want the card grade with the auto on it. If it's already been authentic, if it's a pack pulled auto, right? If it's like obviously an autograph that's been signed after the fact by the athlete, then you're going to want the auto authenticated and or graded. So, the other side is from the PWCC vault. So I had some cards in my PWCC vault, and I basically made the same submission. And this is kind of part of liquidating my vault. So I'm basically getting everything out of my PWCC vault slowly but surely at the right time. But I did have a bunch of Cade Cunningham, Zaire Williams, one Caden Clark, and a Jeremy Pino auto that I went ahead and had.
Dang, that Jeremy Pino auto is going to be sick.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Now I have no way of knowing what those cards are gonna grade, because those are all cards that I just bought off of eBay, had shipped to the vault, never seen them in real life. PWCC actually does a really nice job now of they actually require that they authenticate your cards. So you have to pay a $6 fee per raw card now at PWCC. But what they do for that $6 is they authenticate, they video your card so that you have a Vimeo video of your card. You have really nice high res images of the card. And then they don't slab it for you, but they put it in a top loader with a label on it. That's a nice looking label. And the reason I like that, for those of you who need to use a vault service, is now you have great pictures of a raw card with like a nice label on the top. And if you're selling the card online and then shipping it from your vault to the buyer, it's a better experience now for the buyer. Like, it's a guaranteed better experience, because before, like, whatever the seller sent it in was what I had a picture of. So like, I used to get cards in my PWCC vault that had, like, tape over the player's face or whatever, like over the top loader. And it's like, I can't sell that because that's the only photo I can get of that card. So all those things kind of combined as my win of the week. And then this I'll just answer the other question I had from an audience member was around grading. So Kendall, I wanted to get your take on this. So Travis Martin asked, the criteria that I use to determine if a card should be sent to PSA. So he's saying, I'm hesitant to begin grading cards because you never know what grade it will come back as, plus adding in the fees, right? And so the insight that I gave him in the email that I'll just elaborate more on now is my method is pretty simple math. So I look at what do I have to pay for the raw card? What does it sell at in PSA 10? And what does it sell at in PSA 9? And then what grade level submission can I submit it at? So what are my total fees per card, including the grading fee? And then the reason I mentioned PSA 9 is because if I think that it's worst case a 9, best case a 10, if it's selling in PSA 9 for within 10% either way of the total cost that I put into the card, including grading, I will send it in, as long as the athlete is someone that I believe will have a market. That's kind of the athlete has to have a market. It can't just be, it can't just be like Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons, who's like lighting it up right now. His rookie raw card, sending it in because the math works. Like, I just don't know that Bojan Bogdanovic has a market. So it has to be a guy that I know will have a market, and then the math has to work out. And then obviously the greater the upside of the PSA 10, the more reason you have to maybe go with like a different grading level to get it back quicker, or, because then if you get it back quicker, you still have the opportunity to profit more because the PSA 10 selling, at a higher profit margin. But Kendall, I know you and I think differently a lot of the time on grading. So do you have anything to add to the audience question here?
No, I think you've done a great job of explaining the position. I mean, I tend to agree with where you're at as well. I just am probably not buying that many raw cards. And typically what I'm doing is my market is in just buying PSA 10s and then flipping them. So I actually am not bulk grading that much, because considering, Paul, an L a week for me is that order is still not back. Like, the one I sent in July is just like been on the last step since September, and like frustratingly, it had some. It had World Cup players in it, and I just was anyway. But that's just part of the game, like there's going to be cycles where you're going to send stuff to a service, and you're going to have to really know if you have the time margin for all that, like if it's going to be quick, you're going to have to pony up and pay the extra money for the quick turnaround. But I like what you've said about market and like knowing where you're at with the auto stuff. Interest. Like I never even thought to just get the card grade. Like I was just like, yeah, I've got to get my bare minimum is authentic on the auto. But you for the Encarnacion Strand just went with the.
I just went with the card grade. I mean, because the Jordan Poole sold for $1,400 in October, and it didn't have an auto grade. It was just a PSA 10 card grade, no auto grade, Panini Authentic Auto, obviously. I mean, you can do that with a Contenders rookie ticket auto. You can do that with a Bowman first Chrome prospect auto because everybody like it says on the card that it's a Topps or Panini authenticated auto. But yeah, so I mean, it could have backfired, but it didn't. I think people just the buyer and the people, it got a lot of bids too. So it was more than just that one buyer. It was like 30 or 40 bids on that card. So all those people saw PSA 10 on the card. It's a Contenders rookie ticket auto. It's Jordan Poole. Again, you make this point all the time, which is brilliant. Like you need to acquire cards that you don't have to make up and make grading decisions on cards based on you not needing to explain stuff to people. So this was just Jordan Poole, PSA 10, Contenders rookie ticket auto. It had nothing to do with the auto grade. It was just that simple. And there it was. So now had it been.
And like, if you don't like it, this card ain't for you, like this is the peak of
there's going to be a market for it. Yeah. Like I'm going to be able to sell this card. If you don't want it, that's fine with me. But yeah, if you're trying to explain something to somebody, that's a different situation. So, hello to VJ Patel.
What's up, VJ?
Sorry that the World Cup is over, but man, could not have asked for a more exciting World Cup. I don't think so. VJ, good to see you, man. Kendall, let's go to you for your buy of the week. Who you buying?
I have two guys that I'm interested in. One in particular is the same theme that I've been harping on about baseball, and in previous years is where we're at right now. Bowman Chrome has just released. It's kind of like on its, I don't know if it's like on its downturn yet, but it's definitely like not at its peak. But we're about to have Bowman Draft come out in the next week, and actually, it's in the next 9 days. So Bowman Draft is typically where you see a ton of the top level prospects, but then you have a ton of autos come out for pitchers as well. So it's a unique product to where it's like the best of the best guys are in there, like the guys like Marcelo Meyer and Jordan Lawler were in last year's. But at the same time, you had guys like I don't know. You just had like tons of pitchers in the deal as well. And so, for instance, Kumar Rocker, third overall pick for my Rangers, is going to have an auto in this set. And it's probably going to be an auto people are going to chase, but it's not going to be an auto that's going to be really worth much down the road because we've talked about, pitchers. And I think there is an aspect where you can make money on those players when they're severely overlooked. But, so anyway, the guy that I am buying right now is a guy I'm really interested in is Kyle Manzardo. He plays for the Tampa Bay Rays. And this was the one that I don't want to get like too cheeky about, but like his numbers are good. His numbers are great. The only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is that it looks like his last level is at high A, from what I'm looking at. And so, but his stats are off the chart. He's got a 327 average in 2022 minor league baseball. He's got a 16% K rate, which is half of the warning level. He's got a home run to stolen base ratio of 22-1. He's an elite player. He's got all the measurables you want. So Kyle Manzardo is a guy that I'm looking for, and he's in a system in the Tampa Bay Rays that is doing really good job of developing prospects. They've just done a good job of it. And so I'm looking at him and kind of saying like, okay, let's see if I can spend some money here. There's a guy named Kyle Manzardo. He's number 34 on our list. There you go. And above Juan Soto. So that should give you guys the okay going forward of looking for Manzardo cards. The Bowman Chrome Auto is what I would look for primarily. But if you had the cheddar for it, I would go at least to like a refractor. It seems these days that the as more and more cards are getting printed, the more and more things that are holding value are the color autos of people's autographs. And so I love Kyle Manzardo right now. And then I'm also looking at a guy in basketball, Paul. You might be able to throw a little love your way here. But Bruce Brown Jr. from the Nuggets is an electric player. I've been watching the Nuggets quite a bit because I love watching Jokic. And I just figured KCP or Murray were going to be the guys that were going to play alongside him. But man, I am really surprised with how Bruce Brown is playing. I believe he came up in the Pistons organization, I think. And he's got like a card in 2018 Prism. He's a guy that I'm interested in. He's a guy that's definitely on the turn, I think. Getting some significant run here with the Nuggets, seems to have actually found his stride in the NBA with this team. And I like what I'm seeing.
Interesting. So Kyle Manzardo, like Kendall said, number 34 overall at nooffseason.com's baseball card rankings. Check out nooffseason.com. Again, go premium free for a year if you want. Just email me at paul@nooffseason.com. And then, yeah, Bruce Brown, definitely like a fun guy to watch. He, unfortunately, it was a great pick by my Pistons. Unfortunately, they got rid of him. He landed with the Nets. I think that was a trade. And so he was pretty good with the Nets during one of their playoff runs with KD, and has landed in Denver, to Kendall's point. And yeah, is putting up some stats, getting a lot of minutes, very efficient player. Couple different ways you can go with this. My thing is, I probably wouldn't invest in a guy like Bruce Brown just because I'm looking for number one guys on NBA teams. That's just kind of been my staple over the last year. When I'm putting money into a card, it's going to be for a number one guy, not necessarily a flyer. I was doing flyers before that. That's not to say that I don't recommend the other people take flyers. Gary from Hoops and Cards, takes a lot of flyers, and I would love his take on Bruce Brown. But the positives to potentially buying a guy like Bruce Brown is that he's a second round pick, which means that he probably won't have as many cards. So 2018 second round pick. And I think, Kendall, the 2018 print runs were probably lower than the 2019 and more current print runs. And so that is an advantage, actually, believe it or not, for those of you who are newer to buying sports cards from a flipping perspective. Getting a guy who's a second round pick, getting a guy who is not only a second round pick, but is pre-2019 player in general, like a DeJounte Murray or like a Gary Trent Jr., guys that I've talked about before. Bruce Brown, he's going to be in the mix. Denver's good. So it's not that he's not a good player. It's just, how much are you buying? How much are you paying for his cards? And if it's dirt cheap, then there's some upside there. Kendall, have you bought any Bruce? Like, have you
not yet
Bruce Brown? Okay.
But so last night I was watching the Nuggets, and I've watched quite a few Nuggets games actually this year. Because I love watching Jokic and he's on my fantasy team. But I just the past couple of weeks have been watching Bruce Brown, and I'm like, okay, he's catching my attention. I actually looked up some of his cards, which is usually the last step for me before buying something. And so, but I think when I was putting myself in the shoes of our listeners, it's really easy for us to just say, yeah, go buy Messi. Yeah, go buy Mbappe. Yeah, that's basically just supporting a mass culture review. And so I was thinking, okay, if I'm a listener of a strategy show, where's a guy that I've never heard of that I can go look for. And I think maybe you've never heard of, like, if you're an average NBA viewer, you definitely have not heard of him. He's a second round pick. He's from Vermont. He's the only basketball player to ever make the NBA from Vermont. So it's just like, it's fun to watch.
It's a great call. That you're absolutely right. That is why we do the show. We do the show to not be Captain Obvious. So good work, Kendall. Way to bring.
But I would agree with you though that I
Prince.
tend to go towards the number one on the team. But every once in a while, I like just like, throwing up. For instance, I bought 5 Nick Richards autos earlier this year, and to our argument, like recapping, James Wiseman has spent more time in the G League than Nick Richards has spent on the bench. So I don't know. We'll see. See if Plumlee gets moved. He's playing really well. So I don't know.
But that's why we started the show, and that's why I started the website, is because sports cards is a great way to prove your sports knowledge to your friends and get some bragging rights and make some money. So it's just like, some people want to play FanDuel and DraftKings and other online sports books and DFS and stuff, and some people want to play fantasy sports, and there's a lot of crossover with cards. Like go grab a Bruce Brown 2018. Better yet, I mean, that's a great card to find at a card show also. So I mean, not only on eBay or online, but if you can find like a guy like a Bruce Brown 2018 Prism or something like that, even a Don Russ optic or something like that at a card show or a card shop, that'd be awesome. Better yet, like go, like if you live in New York and you can find a Bruce Brown because he used to play for the Nets, and then sell it online to somebody who lives in Denver. That's the play right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my buy of the week, I'm going to go fast because I picked up a bunch. I picked out a bunch of guys from marketmoversapp.com. So if you want your first month for only $1 at marketmoversapp.com, use the promo code NOOFFSEASON. And I use the deals tab, but I also like to go to the movements tab and just type in a player's name. And then if you go to the movements tab, type in a player's name, and then you could toggle between player and card. So like Erling Haaland, his market's been down consistently since the World Cup started, and even leading into the World Cup. And we have talked about him many times, but not everybody listens to every show. And so I want to bring it up again. Like, who to buy when Messi and Mbappe go off? To me, it's Erling Haaland, because Messi and Mbappe and the World Cup represent how strong the soccer card market is. And you could make an argument, well, Haaland's never going to play in a World Cup. That's not necessarily true. He just didn't play in this World Cup. He's also like the best player in the world. So
he also could reclassify to an English national,
which would be,
that would be unreal.
Yeah, that would be like a huge bump to his.
I don't think he's going to do that,
market.
Just to be clear. But
the dude is, I would say, it's hard to say better than Mbappe now after watching what Mbappe did yesterday. But he was looking pretty darn good before the break.
He scores a lot of goals.
He scores a lot of goals. He checks all the boxes, and maybe the only box he doesn't check is the World Cup box, but maybe one day he will. So anyway, go where they ain't, right? And his market is down, over the last 60 days, 28.4%. And there is no reason for his market to be down other than the fact that he just has not been in the news cycle. So buy him now, flip him later. You will make money on Erling Haaland. A few other guys, George Russell, talked about him. Now is a great time to buy F1. Down, his overall market's down 22% over the last 30 days. That will not continue. That will go up, especially as we head into February. So now is a great time to buy George Russell. Let's talk about some baseball guys. This Elly De La Cruz 2022 Bowman Sapphire Edition Chrome Prospects first PSA 10, not an autographed card. It's down. It's super liquid though, so it sells every week multiple times. That's what I mean when I say super liquid, for those of you who don't follow that terminology. But this card sold in November for multiple times for, around $130 to $150. Now you can get it for $120. This is a guy that when baseball starts up and when he gets the call up,
That's a great call.
even this simple of a card should sell for quite a bit more than that. I would sell during the initial call up. Jordan Lawler's card market's down 13%. Anthony Volpe's card market is down 8% over the last 30 days. So, Kendall, what do you think of those real quick of those guys? You follow a lot of those guys more than I do. What do you think of those buys right now?
I think the strongest. Well, I think all those were great calls. I think the strongest call you've made right there is Elly De La Cruz. It's a very similar thing to what I did last year around this time. I bought into Indy Rodriguez and Julio Rodriguez, and both of those ended up playing out very nicely for me. So I'm tuning in, trying to figure out how much money I can spend in terms of what I want to put into, one or two cards rather than spreading it out. And Elly is one of those that's on the list that I know. Yeah, I mean, if there was a futures line on Elly De La Cruz winning Rookie of the Year right now, I'd probably take it because it's probably very good odds. And this guy is a Martian, like I know that Dominguez's nickname is the Martian, but this is like the real Martian. Elly's the real deal, and I'm just super excited he's probably going to make camp this year, and he's probably going to be on this Reds team that is going to be struggling for attention. And so Elly is going to get all the run in the world to just destroy baseballs. So we'll see.
The other guy that you talked a lot about last year was O'Neal Cruz. And that paid off for a lot of our audience who listened to you. It paid off for me. I listened to you. And I made some money on a couple O'Neal Cruz cards. And we think Elly De La Cruz is that next guy. So I'm going to go into my who to sell now. Then Kendall will, then we'll wrap up the show. So, because we're running out of time in our hour here. So who am I advising to sell right now? It would be, this might be unpopular, but I'm going to go Jalen Hurts base cards. His market is up so much right now, and he is dominating from a statistical perspective and from a winning perspective, that all of his, not only his base cards, but any of his sort of odd set parallel numbered variations, odd set meaning like certified, like not even his non-rookie cards are showing up as being up, believe it or not. So I would just, if you're holding a banger Jalen Hurts, some type of Contenders rookie ticket auto, or some, select auto, or, they're obviously like a National Treasures or something like that. I mean, I would caution you not to necessarily sell that right now, because the Eagles do look like they could make a run at the Super Bowl. But it's one of those things where we talked about it earlier in the show. A lot of times the build up to the potential game is a better time to sell than the actual game or the result of the game. And the fact, really, it's still going to be a tough road for any of these teams to even get to the Super Bowl. So the same could be said for like a Kirk Cousins situation. The same could be said for a bunch of other quarterbacks. But I just think, unless you're holding some really, really nice auto Jalen Hurts cards, I would sell his Prism base PSA 10s, his Optic PSA 10s from 2020. But again, that could be unpopular. I would love to know what the audience has to say about that and what Kendall has to say about that.
Yeah, I think he finally showed that he was human yesterday. Sure, he had 3 rushing touchdowns, but he did not look like Jalen Hurts yesterday. And if you didn't watch the game, you're probably like, oh, you're looking at the stat line. You're like, yeah, he had some turnovers, but okay, whatever. He's still dominated. True. And the Eagles are still a dominant force. Yes. But a lot of that came in the second half, and a lot of it was hard to get there. He grinded this one out. He grinded that stat out, which is honestly really appealing as well. But I love that play. I would get out of him if I can. But my sell of the week is a guy that we talked about earlier this year. And I said, I think if we wait, we're going to get a really cool opportunity to sell later in this year. And so let me go ahead and share my screen here too, because I've got it pulled up. Blah, blah, blah. Permission. Yeah. So Trevor Lawrence, we talked about him in like week 2 or 3, and I was like, hey, this guy probably is going to have a chance to pop off later this year. And he just beat the Cowboys in overtime, which was like super fun to watch for me. But this guy's market is green all over the place in every card as well, similar to what you're talking about in Jalen Hurts. Trevor Lawrence is a guy who they have a 48% chance of making the playoffs as of right now. They have weirdly enough, they have a 44% chance of making the playoffs and a 43% chance of winning the division. So it's like, there's still some likelihood out there that Trevor is going to make a playoff run, which is still going to be in the net positive for you if you're selling Trevor Lawrence cards here between now and the future. But that's still under 50%. So I'm going to take this big Cowboys win and ride off into the sunset if I'm Trevor Lawrence owner and enjoy my win. So
I like that. That's a great call and a good lesson for everybody watching and listening to the show. One thing that I have to add before we sign off for today is that I am thinking of going to the Atlanta Culture Collision Card Show. It's Friday, January 27th through Sunday, January 29th, coming up in 2023, which is just about a month away. And Cobb Galleria Center in Southeast Atlanta. So I may be there. I'm going to look at flights, Southwest flights from Nashville to Atlanta today, see if I can maybe book something and go to Atlanta for Culture Collision, because I've heard from everybody that's a pretty decent show. So if any of you are thinking of going or are going, let me know. Email me or drop me a line in the comments, and I'd love to see you there.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a presence there last year at Just Baseball, and so they met some incredible athletes out there that were just in Atlanta and just came up there to just see what's up. So it's really
That's
cool.
Sweet. Cool. All right, Kendall, do you have anything to add before we sign off for today?
Dude, I just need some rock music in my ears, baby. Play that rock music.
Here's the rock music. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. I'm Paul Hickey. He's Kendall McKee with nooffseason.com. Talk to you soon.